And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
145. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. What is it? Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? We don't need any more of these.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're watching from. Welcome to Starlink 12-26, which is launching hopefully 58 minutes from now from Florida. My name is Adrian Ball. I'm your host for today's launch, and the person on this call that will also complain a lot about how hot it is in Germany right now. And I found two people who will absolutely have more right to complain about heat, but will still not do it. Starting with Alex. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. I mean, we were talking about this before the show. We're at essentially the same temperature. It's just that I'm used to this.
Yeah, I'm not. It's sorry. You will hear me being annoyed about heat a lot today. And the one other person who totally has more right to complain about heat and sun and everything is Max Evans. Max, how you doing?
Hot, Adrian. It is in the 90s out here, and I'm in the direct sunlight, so I don't want to hear a peep out of y'all, but I'm just kidding. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on wherever you are, and welcome to yet another Daytime Starlink.
Absolutely. And behind the scenes, we have Jay Keegan, who's running the show today. And we will talk the next 57 minutes about Falcon, about maybe also some Axiom, because I feel like we also have to talk about that. And then we will talk about today's mission as well. Let's start with today's mission, though, here, Alex. Do you mind explaining to us what is launching today? Where is it launching to? What's the booster? You know, the usual spiel.
Yeah, so as you can see there, that's a Falcon 9, and today's mission is Starlink 1226. It's going to be launching a mixed batch of Starlink V2 Mini and Starlink direct-to-cell satellites. To be more precise, 10 of the Starlink V2 Minis and 13 of the direct-to-cell satellites. Once it is actually during launch, we'll point out, look, you can see the different satellites and whatever on the satellite stack. But you know, coming back to that launch in particular, this is going to be it's a Group 12 mission. So as I just said, it's going to be Starlink V2 Minis and direct-to-cell satellites, and they're also going to a 43-degree inclination orbit, which means they're going to be heading southeast out of the Cape. So if you are in the area, you know where to look. That's essentially there. You can see that map of the hazard zones for the aerial zones and the marine zones and all that stuff to alert people. You know, don't fly around there, don't boat around there, because, you know, if things go wrong, things may fall on you, right? That's not ideal. And so that's essentially more or less the trajectory out of the Cape. The second stage will perform 2 burns, as usual, to deploy the satellites. One to first go into a preliminary parking orbit, then another one to circularize a little bit that orbit, deploys the satellites, and then it does a third burn to be able to dispose itself over the Indian Ocean, as you can see there. That's again same thing as the launch, but for the orbit burn of the second stage, so that boats and planes are not over the area, because of course you wouldn't want to be there. Other than that, it's just, you know, your normal Starlink. I guess Sawyer will probably hate me for saying this might be an ordinary Starlink launch. The only thing that is off a bit here is the booster. So the booster is B-1078. It's flying on its 21st flight. Boosters flying that many times, it's not an exception, right? We've seen many of these. But perhaps one interesting thing with this one is that it's a 40-day turnaround. It's been a while since it last launched. Nowadays, these turnarounds are like 25, 30 days. So it's a little bit on the longer side of the turnaround times. It's already done 20 missions in the past. It's done for customer missions, Crew 6, O3B Power B, USSF 124, and Bluebird 125. And Starlink missions, well, you can see there are 16 Starlink missions. I can quickly go through those: 6.4, 6.8, 6.16, 6.31, 6.46, 6.53, 6.60, 10.2, 10.6, 10.13, 6.76, 12.6, 12.9, 12.16, 672 and 684. That was its last
Bingo.
mission. Yeah, right. And so that's pretty much it. Other than that, 386 satellites already launched. Will be going up to 409 satellites with this mission for that booster. Quite a lot of satellites. And those satellites are on a fairing, right, Adrian? So those fairings are also going to be recovered, and that's going to be with fairing recovery vessel Doug. I think I went through everything here, but if you have any questions, Adrian, what do they have to do?
That was quite impressive, honestly. That was a very structural way to describe everything that is interesting about this mission. Another thing that is interesting today is, of course, watching the weather. And I wanted to go to Max. Max, I know it's hot, but of course, hot is not really influencing the rocket. But besides hot, what's the weather in Florida like?
Yeah, it is quite warm today, but rockets are not any strangers to immense heat, especially Falcon 9 burning Kerolox and liquid oxygen. But it's worth noting first that the launch window this morning opened just before 8 a.m. at 7:45 this morning, and SpaceX opted to push to the very end of the window very early on, which made it better for all of us here in the field because it meant that we didn't have to wake up as early. But the downside of doing that was the weather at the end of the window holds a 40% chance of violating the weather constraints for launch. In other words, there is only a 60% chance of favorable weather as opposed to 85% like there was at the opening of the window. That is common practice here in Florida, or I shouldn't say practice, but it's a common theme, especially at this time of year in Florida, where we are basically in summer and the afternoon weather becomes incredibly unstable with the troughs coming off of the ocean, mixing with the air inland and creating a whole bunch of storms and wind and low-level clouds. In other words, just not a whole lot of conditions really worth flying in for risk of your vehicle in your ground system. So that being said, their risk criteria for upper-level winds, booster recovery, and solar activity are all low. So the primary weather concerns are local here to the launch site, and they are currently the cumulus cloud rule. And for those who are not familiar with what that means, essentially, if a cloud is too thick and contains too much moisture and the rocket flies through it, there is a great risk of Falcon 9 or any rocket that is flying through it creating its own lightning and just creating a whole bunch of problems beyond that, between any faults in the flight control systems or even worse yet, a RUD, because rockets are full of highly flammable propellants and other substances, which is not what you want to have around lightning. So yeah, I would say weather today, at least with what our Mark 1 eyeballs are showing us right now, there is some low-level clouds coming through, but that's just typical for this time of year in Florida. Nothing to really be worried about yet. But as you can see, the light towards Slick 40 from here at the price site isn't exactly ideal. The sun is basically above us, which means there is going to be a lot of heat haze, and the rocket is borderline backlit right now. So not the most visually appealing, but that will change once T0 arrives, and we hopefully see Falcon 9 getting off the ground.
There we go. I like these answers today. And Alex, we also sometimes get here some new viewers, and I want to hit these two questions from John Cook, who sent them for Dottie, asking how tall is this rocket and how much does the Falcon 9 weigh? I know the last one you probably could change every second, but we're probably talking at liftoff. So yeah, do you mind give me a quick overview? How tall is this rocket and how much does it weigh?
Yeah, so Falcon 9 is roughly, in this configuration with the fairing, is roughly 70 meters tall. So if you're more familiar, for example, with Starship, that's about the same height as the booster, as the super heavy booster. So it's quite impressive. But it's a very tall rocket. It's on the higher end of the spectrum of heights for rockets, if you will, right? So it's about 70 meters tall, 3.66 meters wide. I don't know off the top of my head those things in feet. Oh, well, there you go. Haha, it's on the SpaceX website. But yeah, and so there you can see roughly 550 metric tons of liftoff mass. It can carry around 23 tons to low Earth orbit in an expendable configuration, but in reusable configuration, in the configuration that it's flying today, it's essentially roughly 17.5 metric tons to low Earth orbit. Two other orbits, of course, that varies as well, like 5.5 to geostationary transfer orbit, etc., etc. That's more or less what it can take in terms of mass. In terms of size, that fairing is about 5.2 meters in diameter, roughly 10, 13 meters long, so it can fit a school bus essentially inside, which is quite impressive. But yeah, really large payloads that it can carry. Of course, not the largest ones. That'll have to be waiting for Starship and other certain rockets of that magnitude, but definitely big payloads up into space.
There we go. Thank you so much, Alex. Max, I want to address the crew elephant in the room here because this was the day where we also expected Axiom to launch. And there has been a few interesting days on the road to see Axiom launch, and I'm seeing some people also chatting about that. Do you mind giving us a quick overview of what's going on with Axiom?
Yeah, the entire Axiom 4 mission timeline has been, I don't want to say cursed to this point, because we have seen other missions fall off kind of this bad in terms of timelines and delays, but yeah, so at first teams discovered a liquid oxygen leak on Falcon 9, and then there were some other issues they found with TVC during the recent static fire test of Falcon 9 and Dragon over on LC-39A. That was addressed in the press conference, and they said that they had a route forward to fix the issues at hand. We saw they went through a cryo test yesterday. There was no static fire involved in that, but the rocket was frosty, so I believe that was to address any of the leaks or the issues that they had. So as far as we know, the vehicle is about ready to go, and they have performed all of the repairs that they needed to. But at this point, we are now we are now aware that there is a further leak on the Zvezda module on the International Space Station, which is on the Russian side, and that is, of course, not a situation you want to be sending four astronauts into from anywhere in the world, really. So it's suboptimal. Teams at NASA and Roscosmos are addressing the issues, and they are working out a solution. But in the meantime, Axiom 4 and its crew are pretty much just hanging out. Yeah, we were expecting it to launch about a week ago, and there has been a ton of delays ever since. But you know what? That is just how the ball rolls sometimes. That is part of the game, and I do feel bad for all of those who have traveled to Florida to watch this one, because crew launches are always special, especially when they're going to the ISS. But as I said, it is unfortunately part of the game, and we are going to roll with the punches and hopefully get Axiom 4 off the ground soon.
There we go. Thank you so much. And yes, it's always a tricky situation, right? Like if you have a leak right there, you kind of want to focus on that, and you don't want to. Of course, also docking takes a ton of resources from the ISS because people have to assist with the docking and everything. So yeah, not really the time to launch it, and we'll stand by for a new launch date. Let's say I have my heavy doubts if some pending no terms and everything about tomorrow will be accurate. That's my personal opinion here, but I feel like it doesn't feel like it might launch tomorrow. Let's see here. Alex, this is one for you because it's all about statistics. Adrian, wonderful name by the way, is asking, recently you've said that there was the 500 Falcon launch, but today SpaceX said that last Vandy launch was the 500, and now I'm confused.
Yeah, I actually tried to clarify what they meant by 500th launch. Well, we'll talk about those stats later, Jay. But when they refer to 500 launches, is because they talk about successful launches. So yesterday's Vandenberg launch was the 505th launch of a Falcon family rocket. So again, that's counting Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, but also Falcon 1. And if you remember, Falcon 1 launched 5 times. 3 of those were unsuccessful launches, failures, essentially, right? And then Falcon 9 has launched many times, nearly 500 already. There you can see that explanation. But it's got 2 failures. So 3 plus 2, that's 5. 505 minus 5, that's 500. So there's why they said completes its 500th overall mission. If you think about it, those failed launches never completed the mission, right? And so it makes a lot of sense when they specifically mention Falcon completes its 500th overall mission, because it essentially refers to the successful launches. Now, that also involves a suborbital launch. And if you're the type that are like, oh, New Shepard launches don't count because it's suborbital, all that stuff. I know that there's certain people that do take issue with that sort of thing. So if you do take issue with suborbital launches, don't fret, because today's launch will therefore be the 500th. Of course, we want it to be the 500th successful launch of a Falcon family rocket that goes to orbit, right? That will be the whole idea with that, because there was in-flight abort test that was suborbital, Falcon 9, but it was a success. It launched, it did the thing that it was supposed to do, and it happened. But it's included in that 500 number that SpaceX says. If you don't include that, we're still at 499. So there you go.
And if you this is a world of technicalities that we sometimes run into with these classifiers, and I want to point out that once we go into mission versus launches, it gets even more funky, because technically Amos 6 was like a mission being performed. It just failed on like before launch on a static fire. But still, it was technically a mission, but it was not a launch. So there's all kinds of different qualifiers that we could apply here to make this way more funny. But
yeah,
let's not do that.
You can also go things like, oh, I only count Falcon 9 missions and things like that. Well, just wait a couple more weeks and you're gonna get that, right? Because that's how the launch cadence is lately. It's bonkers.
I have a question that is the most Max Evans question I ever seen. Owen is asking, do we have stubby MVAC on this mission?
That's the most okay. That's the most oriented question toward me.
I got you there, Max. I got you.
I guess. So unfortunately, given the performance needed out of Falcon 9's upper stage with these Starlink missions, with how much these satellites weigh and where they're going, they need the full performance out of the full size nozzle. So essentially, the reasoning for them using the I guess shorter or stubby nozzle at times on the MVAC is to save mass on the upper stage and save cost in manufacturing. That the nozzle extension on the MVAC engine is made of an alloy called niobium, and it is very, very expensive and is very, very tedious to manufacture. And so any opportunity SpaceX can utilize to save time and cost in that matter is a bonus. The downside of using the stubby nozzle is you lose a bit of performance and efficiency, because the way vacuum optimized engines function is the larger the nozzle, the more efficient and the more thrust the engine produces. But there at some point there comes a trade-off where the nozzle extension itself becomes too heavy, and you need to cut off the length at that point. So in a perfect world, I think engineers would like an infinitely long vacuum optimized nozzle, but in the case of the MVAC, it is already very large. But obviously, with some missions, they can afford to lose a bit of length in that regard. So, but with these Starlink payloads and how heavy they are, they have to use the full size nozzle.
I wonder sometimes if they also would love if they had an infinitely long window. They don't have today, but they just used a bit of that window, Max, because we just had an 8-minute slip into the window. The new target of this launch is now 11:29 a.m. Eastern, which is basically almost at the end. They have like 15 more minutes of window after this. So, yeah, getting kind of interesting about the window. Alex, in general, this window like was weird, right?
Yeah, the beginning, for those that may not know about this, so they have usually for these Starlink missions 4-hour windows, right? And then within the window, they have little sub-windows, as I call them, essentially like another sort of bracket of times and period of times where they can launch the mission, or they're targeting the launch of the mission. So they have usually these many sub windows, right? For this one in particular, at least as of yesterday morning, they had 8 of them. They publish these usually to some of the satellite trackers so that other operators are aware where the Starlink satellites are once they are launched, etc., etc. Because side note here as well, when you launch a lot of satellites at once, it's hard to track them. But if the launch operator, namely SpaceX here, knows where they're going to be end up, then they can alert everybody else. Anyways, so there's this list of sub windows that is usually released a few days before the launch, and as of yesterday, it was 8. And it was like the first 4 or 5 that were all concentrated at the beginning. Yeah, that's the website from Celestra, one of those sites that I was just mentioning. And so they had like the first 4 or 5 concentrated right way at the beginning of the window. Then it was like a 3-hour gap, and then at the end of the window, like the 30 minutes at the end of that window, they had another 3 or 4 sub windows. Now that you can see, it's like all of those at the beginning were eliminated. We're already towards the end of that window, and they have those 3 sub windows. Those times are all in UTC time, so you will have to sort of remove 4 hours on each of those numbers so that you get the local time. But then you can see, for example, it gives you the launch time, the deployment time of the satellites. There's also information about the orbits, where they're going to be the satellites once they are deployed, etc., etc. This is very helpful for other operators to essentially not collide with the satellites, the Starlink satellites that are being launched. You don't want that sort of thing. And so, yeah, that's, you can see their launch window. They have the first one, then backup launch opportunity number 1, backup launch opportunity number 2. We are right now on backup launch opportunity number 1, which is that launch window from 15:29 UTC to 15:31:29 UTC. That will be 11:29 a.m. Eastern to 11:31:29 a.m. Eastern. There you go. The whole explanation.
There we go. Thank you so
I
much.
was not going to do it, but I was like, we're showing it, so I'll do it.
Thank you. And we are, of course, ticking down here still at 45 minutes to go. So far, it seems... The interesting thing is, why would they adjust, right? Like, is it vehicle side? Are they just thinking the weather will be better? Is there some clouds in the area they just don't like? We'll see. Max, are you spotting any clouds you would not like?
None that I wouldn't like to this point. I mean, there's obviously still some low levels that are just rolling through, but that's just normal Florida weather. The longer we push into the day, though, give it around anywhere from 2 to 5 p.m. That's when you begin to see stuff start to boil up inland and then and then start working its way toward the coast with storms. So at the moment, nothing too concerning. I wonder what the issue was to make that small delay. We have no insight into that, of course, but just judging from what our Mark 1 eyeballs are telling us, maybe the winds at the pad are too high, but they're really not. The winds here at the press site really aren't even bad at all, and we're only about 4.5 miles away. So I wonder, but at the moment, nothing too concerning as of yet.
Yeah, it's just an interesting. Let's call it an observation for now. We'll refer to that.
What kind of observation, Adrian? Because there are multiple kinds of observations.
No, our observation, not the ULA kind of observation. No, we are like on observation level 1.
That's fair.
That makes sense. Yeah. For context, the United Launch Alliance tends to call mishaps in flight observations. So that's why we laugh about that word, if you're not aware. Just making sure. Let me thank some people here. Starting with Z becoming a PadRat member. Thank you so much. And then M also becoming a PadRat member. Thank you both so much. Dylan Spicer also joining the PadRat membership team here. And as always, PadRat is a level of support where you get some behind the scenes. You also get some members multi-view content around Starbase, especially when we are gearing up for all the cameras. So yeah, quite interesting to always make sure to keep an eye out when we have some behind the scenes for you on that level. Also, we have Goliath 810 with a $20 tip. Thank you so much for that. Saying thanks, folks, for always outstanding coverage. Thank you for that very generous support using tips.nasaspaceflight.com. My God. And then we also have Spaghetti Jeff with a super chat saying, operating a flight out of Stuart should be beam the Cape at flight level 240 when she launches. I hope that is still the case with the slip now. I don't know when that was sent, and I hope it's still the case, and I hope you see something. Thank you so much for that support, and I hope you get to enjoy this launch. Yeah, we just looked at some clouds there. Nothing that looks too super bad and too super worrying.
Actually, so Adrian, sorry to interrupt you, but I just checked the radar and it looks like there is a bit of a squall coming our way from the Atlantic. The wind sometimes over here on the Space Coast can shift, either blowing from the west or blowing from the east or blowing from the south or blowing from the north rather regularly. And at the moment, there looks to be a bit of weather that would be in the flight path of Falcon 9 to the point where it wouldn't be quite over it yet. Normally, if there was any weather downrange, unless it was impinging on the landing zone where the drone ship is, Falcon 9 would just fly right over it and it would pose no threat. But at the moment, there looks to be a bit of a squall offshore right in the flight path to a point where, again, Falcon 9 would not fly over it. So that might be what SpaceX is keeping their eyes on. But they only have about 15 more minutes left in the window, as we were saying. So either that squall was going to have to fade, change direction, or they're going to have to stand down for today. But in the meantime, we are keeping our eyes open.
And of course, in 10 minutes from now, we should see frost. If we don't see frost in 10 minutes from now, it's probably another slip into the window. And that would be the good news. Let's see here. That's a question that I will throw to Alex. Since Axiom 4 is delayed, do they bring Falcon 9 with the Dragon back to the hangar, or will it stay at the pad? And I'm queuing 39A here before Alex starts answering. Show 39A.
You're trying to sort of like operate the stream via Baroque.
Backseat operator.
There it is.
Yeah,
Jay's not
there
doing
you
it,
go.
but I'm saying it. Like, Jay's like, nope.
So it doesn't need to. As far as we know, Falcon 9 can stay on the pad for rather long periods of time, and it's done that in the past. And it shouldn't be a problem as long as, there's any issues with like the weather, because that will be the only thing that will prevent them from keeping the rocket there, essentially. Like if the weather is too rough and there's some issues or something. Even then, we've seen in the past, I think, Max, you have even like a print in our store as well of these Falcon Heavy standing vertical on the pad, and there's this lightning just almost hitting the rocket. Like it's hitting obviously the wires on the lightning support system and everything, but it's like they've kept a bunch of these rockets out there even when there's been storms, and it's just been fine, right? So it's not the kind of rocket that you really need to take care of, really have every single time inside of a hangar or anything. You can just sit there out there and be fine, as long as again, there will have to be some really bad weather or really weird conditions, or I guess if the delay were to be weeks, for example, they could probably be like, you know what, let's take it out and let's launch a few Starlinks in the meantime from 39A. Like that could be also an option that they could do if the delay were to be too long.
Which would take weeks, right? Because they would also have to reconfigure the pad for non-Dragon. So it would, they would not do that for like a week stand down.
And I've been told that it is no longer in the shop. So, but it was at one point.
We are sometimes rotating through.
Yeah, that's. But Adrian, that's a good point as well for the whole thing. Like if you see a print right now that you think, wow, that's amazing. Don't wait too long, because it might eventually be going away. So just saying. But yeah, that's one of those.
It's constantly.
Adrian, I think we have you a bit robotic here.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay. So I'll take it over. Well, we tried to fix Robo Adrian, but I'm looking at the clock, Max, and it's T minus 38 minutes. I do wonder if they were to go for this T0, we should be going soon into propellant load, don't we?
We should. The T minus 38 mark is critical in itself because that is when the SpaceX launch director based over here at the Kennedy Space Center will either verify if the vehicle is go or no go for propellant load, which is a critical milestone because obviously everything has to be in place for the vehicle to receive liquid oxygen and RP1 on both stages. Assuming they pulled go, the vehicle would begin to receive RP1 on both stages and liquid oxygen on the first stage at T minus 35 minutes. So that is just over 2 minutes from now. Normally, we are able to see frost on the bottom of the liquid oxygen stage at around T minus 32-ish minutes time. Which is only about 5 minutes away. So, given how hot and humid it is here today, I don't imagine we will have much difficulty seeing any bit of moisture or, I guess, frost or ice on the tank surface of Falcon 9, given that it is also covered in so far 20 flights of soot. And then following that, prop load will continue up until about T minus 20 minutes, where we will see a big old vent or the best vent, whatever you want to call it, which is where they have wrapped up RP1 load on the second stage, and they are in the process of thermally conditioning the propellant lines in the transporter erector in preps for stage 2 liquid oxygen loading. So, but in order for all of that to occur, the SpaceX launch director has to have given the go by this point, and we will find out in just a few minutes whether they are or they are not. They only have about 15 more minutes left in the window to work, so normally we say, and it is still true, that once they go into prop load, they are then committed to a T0 at that time. But they don't have much left to work with after that today. So at that time, we are working to see if we can see any frost on the vehicle. I think my eyes must be playing tricks on me. So if you look right above the shrubbery there, right where that, I guess, branch is sticking up from that one pesky tree that is sticking out from the shrubbery, I see a white line there, but that also lines up with where where they wipe away over the weld lines over the bottom or common dome of the liquid oxygen tank on the first stage. That is where we normally see frost first, and we will hopefully see that in just a few minutes.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, if they are even go for that propellant load, it will still not begin until 15 seconds from now, right? So, and then once they start loading, it takes a little bit because there's like the transfer tube and everything for the liquid oxygen, then there's the dome itself. And once all of that is filled, then the liquid oxygen is actually touching the walls of the tank, which is why usually it takes a few minutes for the frost to appear. Because all of those volumes essentially need to be filled first. But yeah, I'm not seeing any changes on the SpaceX website. But we'll hope that it keeps to 11:29. I believe Adrian is still on the robot factory, I guess, trying to get all that connection fixed. So in the meantime, I'm gonna be grabbing some questions here, and one of them is rather interesting in my opinion, because it talks about it's by Created Bytes TV, and they're talking about how sometimes the sun flares and things like that can affect the Starlinks when they are in orbit and things like that. They ask, does that mean that SpaceX will need to make more launches than they originally planned and things like that? Max, do you remember? I think it was Starlink 4.7, like a while ago. This was like probably 3 or 4 years ago. Might be a little bit less actually. Where there was like of the entire batch of satellites, like 70% went gone because there was this flare, and essentially it just fried some of the computer systems and everything, and they will not be able to be rising to their operational orbits, and eventually they just fell back down with the Earth's atmosphere and the drag and everything. Like, how crazy?
I think I do.
That?
Yeah, I think so as
Yeah.
well. And there was also a spike in solar activity last year, which actually did end up affecting, I think, a batch or two. And I don't remember if they actually lost most of a batch or if they were just temporarily affected. But solar activity is a major concern or a major factor to take into consideration whenever you want to launch a payload of any sort, as if your spacecraft is not, I guess, well protected, the rays can fry the onboard electronics and otherwise turn your lovely and I'm sure expensive spacecraft into a big piece of space debris, which is not what you want. There was actually a spike also in solar activity last week,
Mm.
but SpaceX opted to not launch during that, thinking we think they may have learned their lesson at least with these Starlink V2 mini satellites at least, because that was I think on some of the forecasts that we saw last week on some of the missions, the risk criteria for solar activity was either moderate or high, which lines up with a spike in solar
Mm.
activity from the sun. So at the moment, it is currently low. So the sun, I guess, for now is behaving itself, despite what my skin would like to think right now, given that we are in direct sunlight here. Yeah, it is quite warm today, and I'm already turning quite brown. Normally, I'm quite pale, but yeah. And as you can see on your screen as well, the window opening the window actually opened this morning at 7:45 a.m. So just before 8 a.m. local time here on the east coast of Florida, where the weather was 85% favorable, but as the window went on towards the end, which is where we are now, it is now currently only 60% favorable, which is a pretty good jump downwards, I guess you could say in weather. But that is just that is just parallel with how the late afternoon or afternoon weather patterns here behave on the space coast of Florida and Florida in general as the summer months roll on. But at the moment, everything is still looking good. I believe just a few minutes ago, we were talking about how there is a bit of a squall or a storm line out over the Atlantic that is coming this way, that is also in the direct flight path of Falcon 9, that we think may be what SpaceX is taking into consideration for the flight path today. And that is why they opted first to delay by a little over a handful of minutes. But they only have 15 more minutes left-ish in the window. So it is now or never. Alex, do you see frost?
I think I see frost, and especially the condensation around it, because it's just so cold that the humidity in the air just starts condensing around it. It sort of forms its own cloud around it, right? Not just the
Yep.
frost itself on the tank, but also that sort of cloud that envelops the rocket. So that confirms that we are indeed in propellant load here on Falcon 9, preparing for the launch of the Starlink 1226 mission from Slick 40 in Florida. And that is a great piece of news, right? Because that means we are logged in now, and that is that. So 30 minutes, 15 seconds from now, we either have a launch or we don't, right? And so that's the whole deal now. This is just logged in, and we have to wait and see. Everything needs to be favorable, of course. We were talking about the weather, but of course the rocket itself, the pad, we've seen lately with the Axiom 4 that the rocket sometimes doesn't collaborate for these things, right? And then when the rocket does collaborate and the weather and everything, then the station says, nope, I'm going to be leaking air. But anyways, I'm going to be picking more questions here. Guys, if you know the drill already, if you have any questions, tag at NASASpaceflight in chat and we'll answer your questions. I'm sure bunch of you are probably still joining in and everything from, we've been already live for 30 minutes. But if there's something that you think has already been answered, just don't fret, just ask it and we'll be answering it. So right now, at 20 minutes to launch, we have an interesting question, I think, from 9/8 Central, which talks about the Merlin engines when they chill down. And it says, do the 9 Merlin engines on the booster have the same log split vent we see on the second stage after ignition? And I want to address this because lately we've seen a lot of comments, especially for the second stage, when they are in the second stage with the MVAC engine. There's this vent on the side of the engine, and a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's a leak, it's something is going on with the rocket, when it is actually totally normal. That's part of the operation of the rocket. And Max, there's one thing that I'm really amazed with you guys, photographers, and it is that you are the only ones that can capture the same version of that, but for the first stage. So yes, the answer is yes, they have that. But there are two vents for the Merlin sea level engines that we can see, sort of like a replay of a previous launch and how that operation works on the second stage MVAC engine. And so the Merlin sea level engines on the booster do have the same, but you have to be very close to those engines to be able to see them. Essentially, when it is on the ground, there are no good camera views of the aft end of the booster to see those vents. But when it is right off the pad, and especially if you have a camera essentially taking a shot of the engines right after liftoff, then you can see those vents. I don't know if you've ever noticed that sort of stuff on any of your pictures, Max.
Typically it's more difficult to capture anything like that, especially from the cameras that we usually leave on the pad, because they're normally programmed to be activated by sound, which normally comes from the 9 Merlin engines at liftoff. However, if you have your trigger up at a higher if it's more sensitive or a higher level on the MIOPS trigger that is ever so prevalently used in the media pool, you can sometimes capture unique little vents and hisses and purges. I think it was for Euclid, the launch of the Euclid telescope, I believe 2 summers ago or thereabouts. I can't remember when that launch started. If it was already 2 years ago, I'm getting old. Jeez. The camera and the trigger were programmed to capture, I guess, the bubble that first comes out of the flame trench as the combination of the RP1 exhaust fumes and the deluge suppression system are thrust immediately out of the flame trench. So it is possible, and I believe there is a picture in the back channel that has remnants of these vents.
Yeah.
As Falcon 9 gets off the ground. But you can capture, but you either have to have a lot of focal length, or you have to be looking right in the right area. As you can see there, if you look in between the nozzles of all 9 Merlin 1Ds, you can see a bit of venting there from each side, and that is, I believe that is what you're talking about, Alex, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you can especially see it better. There's like 3 engines sort of in the foreground, right? And then there's like more engines a little bit to the sides and behind. But the 3 ones in the center, in the foreground, the one in the middle, you can see there's like a downwards vent coming out from that. That's one of those vents that they use for the chill down, and also for once the engine is operating, that it's used to sort of regulate some of the pressures on the pumps and whatnot. It's a very useful way for the engine to be able to control itself and sort of, they call them bleed lines precisely because of that, because it's sort of they are able to regulate all of that. But yeah, I brought this up precisely because I knew you had posted that picture recently, and I brought it to you precisely because of that. Because I remember I saw that and I was like, oh, you can see this and that and whatever. Somebody else also asked in chat, Sadus Manny, about whether because we see the MVAC engine, for example, it glows the nozzle extension when it is operating, and so they asked, do the first stage Merlin engines use full cooling? And I'm sure that picture already tells you the whole deal, right? It's not glowing, it's not the usual radiatively cooled engine. It's just they run a little bit of the kerosene through the bell. Essentially, the bell is sort of like a pancake. There's like lines milled into the wall of the engine. And so it's like a pancake sort of thing where you have 2 sides, and in the middle you have a bunch of kerosene running through, and the kerosene is the one that is used to be able to cool down the engine. But I mean, it's really an amazing piece of engineering. Again, we were talking about 500 launches earlier, so I think it is amazing that we are able to see all of this. Now, we are 23 minutes, 50 seconds away. We're still working on that connection by Adrian. I'm not sure. You're back. Okay. Oh, you're
Adrian's back.
Hello.
I'll give you back the reins of the stream here, because I was trying to hold the fort, but there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for doing that. I will not call out any specific internet service provider here. I will just say that after 3 months of issues, they should have a fix by now, and they don't. Thanks for that. Might need to switch to Starlink, I guess. Speaking of Starlink, 23 minutes from now, I see Falcon 9 is in propellant load, which is a good thing. And I'm sure you all have already talked about the fact that it's either launching in 23 minutes or not today at all. And it's taking down just fine. This is still the T0 we had before I disconnected, right? Like I didn't see anything the last few minutes.
Correct.
It
Yes,
is.
there has been no further delay, Adrian. We're still on track.
Thank you. I'm basically playing catch up here. So yeah, nice seeing it getting nice and frosty. And that's of course what we want to see. Let me quickly first off thanking Paul Moore here becoming a launch director. Holy, that's a huge amount of support. Thank you so much for that, Paul. And I hope you enjoy all the perks, including Discord access, and of course all the member pictures, all the behind the scenes, everything that you can basically get for you. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Alex, when Falcon 9 is fully fueled, does it shrink?
Oh yeah, it does. But we unfortunately don't know by how much, because it's essentially dependent on like different because you have different materials on Falcon 9, right? You've got the aluminum lithium alloy that is used on the main tanks, and then they use like different alloys as well, like the domes is a different alloy than the tanks, etc, etc. And then you've got the intrastage, which is honeycomb composite, carbon fiber and blah blah blah. So like you have different. Oh, I just had a hiccup here. So aluminum, lithium alloys, right, which shrink probably more because they are metals, and then you've got the intrastage, which is not full of cryogenics, right? But there, you still have things like the engine chill from the MVAC engine is running there, for example, during flight and things like that. So there's a bunch of things going on there. There's like different temperatures, even on the tanks themselves. One of them is cold because it's a liquid oxygen, whereas the other one is RP1, so it's a little bit closer to room temperature, even though it's still a little bit also cool down. But that's one of those things that it's like it's hard to actually put numbers to it unless you actually are working at SpaceX and have all of the numbers.
Speaking of all of the numbers, I'm sure they're watching them right now as the T-minus 20-minute event is about to start. Max, do you mind giving our viewers a quick overview? What is this T-minus 20-minute event?
So essentially, what SpaceX is going to be doing, and there she blows, there she goes. This is a visual sign that SpaceX has wrapped up stage 2 RP1 load, and they are flowing a bit of liquid oxygen through the lines in the transporter erector to thermally condition them in order to flow LOX through them to begin stage 2 liquid oxygen loading. And it is incredibly visible because it is very hot and very humid today in Florida. So that cloud is ever so prevalent, especially with the wind direction of today. But that is essentially what they are doing. And this should be wrapping up at around T-minus 16 minutes and 20 seconds or so. And once that wraps up, that is another visual indicator that they have begun stage 2 LOX load. So things are trending in the right direction.
And we like that trend going into the right direction. By the way, I just was mentioned this. Interesting that they are. Alex, have they ever launched on a Friday the 13th before?
Oh my gosh! Look, I have spreadsheets, but they don't track that sort of thing.
Okay, I was like, did they That's an interesting coincidence. I'm like,
I'm sure they have. They have launched so many times that they probably have launched on a 13th in the past. Actually, hang on. Let me check one little thing first. Okay, no. I somehow thought, hang on, did Starship Flight 5 happen on a Friday? Because it was the 13th of October, but that was a Sunday, so it was not a Friday.
I'm making this a chat task. Chat, this is the call to the hive mind. If please go to next space flight. Go to and tell me if you find a launch of Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, or Starship that was on Friday the 13th. I want to see if that happened in local time, by the way, not time zone, in local time. So I want to see if the hive mind of chat is able to figure this out. So yeah, there we go. I will not ask any AIs for this. I asked chat. So let's see here. I think this one is this one is definitely a good one for you, Alex. Given that there are so many positions with such a large constellation of Starlink spread out, do they use Falcon's trajectory to help position new ones? Or basically, like, do they launch it to slots with Falcon 9? Or how does that work?
Okay, so somebody mentioned that there was a Falcon Heavy in Psyche. That was a Friday the
Psyche.
13th. See, that was also on October 13th, but that was in 2023, not 2024. So yeah, I somehow remembered something about October 13th being on a Friday, and that was Psyche, not Starship. But anyways, going back to the question, yeah. So the way that it works with all of the different, shells and orbits and whatever, is that in order to be able to distribute all of the satellites, you have to work sort of with the gravity, right? And gravity is messy when you have a very perfect sphere, right? Things are very easy. But when you have the Earth, which has lumps and it's like fatter on the equator than between the poles and everything, right? Like as some people call it, the fat Earth theory. I think it's a Scott Manley joke. But anyways, and so you have very weird gravity going on there. So your orbital mechanics, usually you try to spread out your satellites in such a way that it's a bit working for that, right, rather than against all of those different things. And there's one thing which is called precession. If you can imagine, what happens is that there's essentially the orbit sort of goes north to south and whatever, right? And as the day and essentially the month progresses, or even the year progresses, it sort of rotates around the pole. So it's still the same inclination, but it can be in different orientations, right? Like, I don't know, like imagine like a paper, and you have it at a constant inclination, but you can still rotate it over that axis of inclination, and you can still have it in different orientations. So that means you can have satellites in the same inclination, 43-degree inclination, but in multiple of these different orbits, sort of around the globe. And that's why we always mention Starlink Group 12. It's 43 degrees, and there's like 26 of them going off, right? And it's like, well, are they all in the same orbit? No, they just go into those different planes. And so what they do is they use orbital mechanics to be able to use and sort of when they launch, depending on the time of day that they launch into one or another of these planes. And so what they do is that efficiently distributes all of the satellites around the globe. And if you're very lost about how all of this works, we're trying to work on a video a bit different, but it's going to explain a few things. It's about rendezvous and everything, but it's very important also when you want to do things like encounter the ISS. For example, if you launch to the same inclination but you are in the wrong plane that it's called, right, the wrong orbital plane, you are essentially on the other side of the ISS. That's wrong, right? You wouldn't get at all anywhere close to the ISS. Same deal with this when you're trying to spread all of these satellites. Or the opposite, you might actually collide with an already existing satellite. You don't want that either. So that's why we think that's potentially the origin of all of these, different T-zeros and some windows and whatnot. And I just made here an entire physics lesson and whatever, but, just trying to explain things a little bit better.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I listened to this because I was not sure. So I was like, sometimes I get to play smart, right? Like, because I can be like, oh, this person in chat is asking, but in real, it's like me also being like, that's a good question. I will ask Alex. So yeah, that's how we do it here. I also want to thank some people here who really looked for launches, we apparently had on Friday, May 13, 2022, a Vandy Starlink launch. There was also Starlink Group 11-2 apparently on Friday the 13th. And there apparently was also some Chinese launch on
You spent that
Friday.
entire answer looking Friday 13 launches.
That's like I'm thanking people in chat. I see Mike Austin has also found an Ariane 5 that launched on a Friday 13th. We have Levon finding a Starlink. There's so many people here. So I'm so sorry, but there's a lot of people found a lot of launches that launched on Friday the 13th. So it's possible. Yeah. Just wanted to quickly mention that when people are searching stuff for us. I also want to quickly mention here Dr. Holly in chat saying good morning from the local orthopedic hospital. My new right knee also says hello. Very dear friend of the channel, Dr. Holly. I wish you the best of recovery, and I hope everything went well. I wish you a speedy acclimatation. I'm liking a word here with that new right knee. Just wanted to quickly mention that. And here we go again. 12 minutes to go. There's a question here about the new Gigabay that will soon be in Florida, Max. Are you interested about that Gigabay?
Very much so.
So will this big Gigabay be comparatively the same size as the VAB?
Not quite. So I guess visually it will be maybe visually speaking, obviously not in volume, but I think just visually it'll be roughly or just under maybe 3/4 the size of the VAB. Either way, it's going to be absolutely massive. Like, it's not going to be a small building by any means, as if Mega Bay 1 and Mega Bay 2 were small anyway, or Hangar X for that matter, or the Star Factory, which we are also getting, but it is going to be 1.5 times the size of the Star Factory currently in Starbase. Folks, all of the Starship activity that you are seeing in Starbase is coming to Florida and then some. It's going to get absolutely nuts here in the next 2 or 3 years. D and I especially, we are so excited and we cannot wait for it. Like, our time's almost here, guys. Our time's almost here.
I don't mean that. That's totally a thing. Like we of course we here at NSF don't know what Das and like Kevin are cooking up for that all the time. But honestly, like, if there's Space Coast activity of Starship, like, Space Coast Live will be an interesting place to watch. I can guarantee you that.
I'm gonna plug one thing in chat, which is the article that I wrote the other day, precisely about all of the news about Slick 37, right, for Starship. But also, there's one part where I say there might be up to 600 Starship events per year at the Cape. Just saying, it can get very active.
I hope Max doesn't like sleep. And speaking of amazing things that I kind of want to mention here is, if you remember, we made a Flight 9 patch, right? And the whole Flight 9 patch was pre-order, right? Like, it was not ready yet for shipping. Well, if you click on that Flight 9 patch right now, you see the little pre-order thing is gone, because it has arrived in our warehouse, and it is indeed shipping. It's no longer pre-order, it just says add to cart, because it can now just instantly ship, because, well, it's there, and we still have a few left. So if you want to get this Flight 9 patch, make sure you do it while it's still there, and I hope everybody that has pre-ordered one will get it over the next few weeks, as these are now shipping. Of course, if you're in the United States, these will be at your door relatively soon. Friendly reminder, if you're from Europe, for example, like Alex and me, these are shipped from the United States. So if it takes a week or so, that is very much expected. Don't panic about that. So yeah, that's the thing.
Adrian, if only we had a way
I will
to
do
ship
that.
these patches.
I will talk about this video, because this video is the I really like writing it. Like, I really like writing our newest video, the point-to-point video, and I think more people should see it, because I think Jack did an amazing way of delivering this video. I think it was really entertaining. I think the edit by Ryan is amazing. I think that video is really, really cool about diving deep into point-to-point and the economics behind it and the pros and cons. And I really, really, really think that more people should watch it. So if you like if our mods could like spam the point to point, the like video that we did.
I can do that.
I would be really. Thank you so much, and I really think more people should watch this after this launch. So there we go.
You could say I'm delivering point to point this link. More like tab to tab, I guess, because I had it on another tab.
I'm not sure if I want to say that. I kind of don't want to say that.
There you go. I spammed it in chat, so people you can put it on another tab, leave it there, and once the launch happens, you can play it.
Somebody in chat just called Jack Baconbeard. I just wanted to mention that out because that's a funny combination.
If he eats enough, maybe.
I also think if you had to describe like Jack in 2 words, I guess that makes sense. Anyway, let's talk about some more Falcon here, as we are just 7 minutes and 20 seconds away from this launch. Oh, Alex, this is a fun one. Hypothetically, if SpaceX were to launch a Crew Dragon mission with 7 people on board, could they still do an RTLS?
I'm mostly sure they could. I mean, I don't think the seats will add that much of a mass to the capsule, and same thing with the extra 3 people on board. It's not a huge amount of mass compared to how big and how heavy the Dragon capsule is, and even if you think, well, but you also need consumables and things like that. Well, it depends, right? If you're going to the ISS, you're right up there. It's like what, a day to get to the ISS, right? And so that's not a lot of consumables that you need to add for one day, and then also like less than a day sometimes for our return from the station. So I think it will still be RTLS. Yeah.
There we go. Thank you so much. Max, at this point, of course, you have to leave us here until after launch because you will start getting ready to track this beauty. But before you leave, quick question: anything about the weather? Any clouds of concern, or are you still thinking this looks good?
Nothing more than what we have been seeing for the past hour or so. So things are still looking good. Obviously, SpaceX agrees because Falcon 9 is about to wrap up propellant load on both stages. So everything is looking good. But it is indeed that time, everybody. So thank you very much, y'all, and I will see you on the other side.
Good luck tracking, Max. And with this, Alex, let's talk about the next 5 minutes and 42 seconds here. What is Falcon 9 doing in these last critical moments before launch? What is the rocket conditioning right now? What is moving? What is not moving?
Yeah. So in terms of the fueling, for example, the propellant load on Falcon 9, they should have already wrapped up the kerosene load on the first stage. So both stages are already loaded with the fuel that they're going to be using. Of course, in space, you need to carry some oxidizer with you because there's no oxygen in space. So that liquid oxygen that they're going to be carrying, it's still being loaded. It's going to be continuing until 3 minutes to launch for the first stage, until 2 minutes to launch for the second stage. In the meantime, all the things that are happening, well, right now, they have already begun the chill down of the Merlin engines on the first stage, flowing a little bit of that liquid oxygen through the pumps. And also at the same time, they are preparing for the Stromback retract. That is sort of the structure. The one in the foreground, no, because it's actually the one that supports crew launches from there, but it is not the one that we're talking about. It's another support structure to the right of the rocket behind that tower. And it's sort of, and it does just that. It also retracts, and that's essentially what's going to be happening here in just a couple of minutes. It's a couple of minute process where they open the top clamp, and then it retracts about 1.8 degrees away from the rocket. But, just getting ready for launch, man. 4 minutes and 10 seconds to launch. Just nothing. It's like that. That's just snap a finger, and it's gone.
Absolutely. And there we see that new tower on pad 40 that is was there constructed now, and of course now pad 40 also being able to support Dragon missions. And we also see the launch clamps, the strong bag, there we go, has already opened and will now retract. I'm missing a lot of words today. And of course, Falcon 9 here in the final stages. Do we know anything about these fairings, Alex? Like, are they reused? Do we know that?
They look reused. I frankly haven't looked up the numbers or even the flights for these fairings, but they are probably flight proven because nowadays they pretty much fly flight proven fairings. And lately they have also these numbers also on them that allows us to identify which one is which is very helpful. Thanks, SpaceX.
River Dave is asking, I heard audio of stage separation during Electron the other day. Why doesn't Falcon 9 have onboard
Stage 1 launch
audio?
is complete.
They probably have. They just don't stream that. They've shown that in some of their recorded videos in the past. And even like way early in the program, there's even some replay of a Falcon 9 launch. I think it was like the tic-tac-toe version, the 1.0 version. And it has audio of the Merlin engines shutting down and the MVAC, starting up and everything. Like you can hear all that. They probably have all that. They just don't stream it. One thing that they do sometimes though is show the audio from the drone ship. Today is a show of Gravitas. Sometimes they show that audio on stream, so we're keeping an ear, I guess, on that. But yeah, 2 minutes to launch. Man, we're so close now.
Absolutely. And I really like Electron staging sound because it has like this very satisfying click. And there we go. Logs load on the second stage also complete. With this, Falcon 9 is fully fueled, right?
Yeah, so essentially that means the propellant load has wrapped up on Falcon 9. We'll see the return of the Stromback vents as they clear out all of the lines. And they just, there we go. Yeah, right on cue. They will probably hear gas closeouts and all that sort of call-outs that they do. Yeah, well, there we go. That's precisely saying, hey, we're gonna vent a lot of things out of our Stromback and depressurizing some of those systems. 15 seconds from now, Falcon 9 will enter startup. That's when it takes over control of the countdown from the ground computers, essentially, just yanking that command from them, essentially, and being the one in control. It's like, hey, look at me. I'm the one in control now.
And we are waiting that call. There it is. Falcon 9's onboard computers have taken over the countdown. Final verification of launch will be the launch director giving the go for launch in about 10 seconds from now. And that is all that is remain from Falcon 9 igniting its beautiful 9 Merlin engines. Waiting for that call. Any second.
LD, go for launch.
There we go. That was the final clearing. And now we are 30 seconds away from Falcon 9 launching. You will probably not see the Merlin engines ignite on this shot, but we will then shortly see it rising. 15 seconds from now. And we will first see the plume next to the rocket when it ignites, and then the rocket itself will rise, because they checked the 9 Merlin engines before releasing the clamps. And 3, 2, 1, 0. And we have ignition, and we have a liftoff of Starlink 12-26, delivering more internet satellites to the LEO internet satellite constellation. Let's listen in for the sound. that has to be one of the most beautiful vapor cones we have ever seen on a Falcon 9 launch. Wow.
That was like, is it fading away? No, it actually kept going. Like I was like, wow, that's a nice vapor cone, and it kept going and it kept going, and then this huge, like I don't know, man, I cannot wait to see the replays already.
Yeah, like that was significant. I have seen, like you and me both, we have seen like over 200s of these launching, right? And probably more.
Yeah.
And I have never seen a vapor cone like this. Like that was a significant one.
Speaking of
So,
significant things, we have Miko main engine cut off,
we go.
and that looks like MBAG ignition.
Back ignition.
Good stuff.
Looking good so far. Let's see if we spot that beautiful MVAC. Yeah, there it is. It is hard to see, but that is an MVAC. Wow. Looking good so far in this launch, and of course, everything looking like we expected. There you can see both stages. I think you can you also see the fairings?
They should be. They should have separated by now, so they probably are.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Yeah. I think you could see them there for a moment. There we can see the in-space views from SpaceX. Beautiful blue, like ocean today on the left. That's significantly blue. And
Just like
that
the other
MVAC.
day.
Yeah.
Oh well,
You like-
you weren't around for that because it was with Gene, I think, but it was really beautiful blue waters.
Somebody really has tuned these cameras lately, I feel like. So that's a really nice thing. Of course, Falcon 9's booster is not done with its mission today because it still is attempting a landing in just about 3-4 minutes from now. Entry burn rapidly coming up. You can see at the bottom on the SpaceX timeline, already halfway between fairing separation and entry burn. And that entry burn will then, oh, look at that like cyan color there. Will then bring it down and slow it down before it hits the denser part of the atmosphere.
Those views are so pretty.
Look at that water. That's
Yeah,
nice.
Flying northeast of the Bahamas. You can see both on the second stage view and on the booster view, sort of the north side of the Bahamas there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially on this view
gorgeous.
of the second stage.
Crazy. Just casually a booster flying over it.
The piece of ice just flying off.
And the booster now will start to rapidly lose altitude as it gets ready for entry burn. Max, I heard we have you back. How was that vapor cone?
Dude, that was the longest vapor cone I've ever seen on a launch ever. I mean, I guess the atmospheric conditions today were just perfect because that one hung around for anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds. That was remarkable, and hopefully that came through on the track, but glorious as ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, so far, glorious views. We can now see the booster getting to its more steep angle as it will hit the atmosphere at quite an angle of attack. Like, Max, I know you have seen these things almost like fly towards you before because when they come back to launch site, it looks like that. These boosters are coming in at crazy angles, right?
They really are, and they're covering a lot more ground than what your eyes are initially telling you. Because here we go, entry burn.
Yep, there it is. 1-3, 3 healthy engines. But yeah, they have a lot of cross range on these. So yeah, watch that speed going down 5,500 kilometers an hour at this point, and we'll shut down to 1 engine. There it is. And 0 engines, and that's shut down on entry burn. Now the grid fins really kick in, and the grid fins will now take over Yep, the steering here, you can see the booster correcting.
You turn
That's
your
normal.
head 90 degrees to the right. You might see that angle that we were talking about, the horizon to the right hand side of the booster view. It's like 45, 50 degrees. Really wild.
And there's the angle of like the really dense part, and it's like shaking a bit. And that's a bit of loss of connection there, but that's normal because it's right now building up plasma.
Stage 1, transonic.
There's it back.
There we
Let's
go.
hope we get some audio here.
Oh yeah, you can see the cloud shadows. And
That's
now
so cool.
a cone around the
In stage 2, yes.
around the grid fins.
You can usually see the drone ship somewhere in the left grid fin before it lands.
Stage 1, landing burn.
Yeah, there it is.
It is.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Landing
It's gonna
burn
go
going
through
well.
that little cloud. This teeny cloud.
There's the
Stage
drone
1, landing leg
ship.
deploy.
Landing legs coming out. And touchdown. Very much in the center
Stage 1,
here,
landing confirmed.
as this booster confirms a successful landing on a shortfall of gravitas. And Starlink's upper stage about to shut down here as well. Should just be seconds from now until we see that Seco shutdown. Come on, please show it. There we go.
There it is.
And that's another successful Falcon 9 launch. That looks good. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I know we are still working on replays in the background. If you want to see that vapor cone again, I will stick around until then, because I feel like there's some chance we will see that vapor cone. So, yeah, that was quite incredible. Let's see here. Let's see if I have some more questions until we get these replays up.
Also funny, this was like just 3 days after the previous Starlink launch.
Also, question here, Alex: are there any RTLS flights coming up?
There was at one point. Axiom 4 is supposed to be RTLS, but unfortunately, as we were being, we've been talking about it since the beginning of the stream, that they had issues with the booster. They've solved those, but now it is on the ISS where they have leaks and everything, and so we'll have to wait and see what happens.
There we go. Yeah, it's in a bit of a limbo, and we'll see when it actually will come up flying. But let's hope that is any day from now, because we like to see things fly. Of course, once it's safe. Let's see here. Max, anything else you noticed on this launch? Like, the sound was very deep for us, at least. And maybe that was just me, but sound was like very deep.
The sound tends to vary depending on what the atmosphere is doing in the wind direction. It certainly was deeper today, and hopefully you guys also heard some VAB squeal through the microphone. But
we did.
Yeah. The sound varies per launch depending on the conditions. But daytime Starlink is always a treat because it has become ever more rare these days, and that super drawn out vapor cone was probably the highlight of Ascent, at least for us here at the press site.
Absolutely. And of course, I quickly want to mention regarding the whole Axiom topic, we will go in depth about Axiom and what is happening the last few days in today's Flame Trench that is planned. And there's also another rocket that will fly on Monday here, Max. That is not a Falcon 9.
It is not. Not too long after the last flight of Kuiper Flight 2 with the Atlas V from ULA is scheduled to launch currently on Monday, so we should expect it to roll out of the vertical integration facility here sometime this weekend. It is a 551 configuration, so 5-meter fairing, 5 solid rocket motors, and 1 RD-180 on the Centaur. So basically, the Atlas V's most powerful configuration. So it's called the Bruiser for a reason. It does bruise Slick 41 pretty good, as well as everyone's cameras who are either fortunate or unfortunate enough to be at the pad, depending on what the wind is doing and blowing the exhaust, because the exhaust is pretty nasty from the SRBs. But yes, Atlas V is currently scheduled to fly on Monday. So assuming Axiom is still on the pad before then, and Atlas rolls out either tomorrow or Sunday, there might be a pretty cool photo op for those who are lucky enough to head out to Playa Linda Beach, which is just north of the KSC, at some point this weekend to get both rockets in frame, which is really cool.
Yeah, overall, in general, next week will be quite a busy spaceflight week. I just looked at the schedule a bit, and there's to the Kuiper mission we just talked about. There will be Starlink from Vandenberg, Starlink from the Cape, then there will be an Angara launch, then a Starlink from the Cape again, then a Long March launch, then transporter mission, then New Shepard, and also Axiom somewhere in the mix. So, yeah, it's gonna be quite a week. And with that, I think we have some replays ready here. Let's look at these replays. And there on the left's the replay, of course. And there she goes. Falcon 9 is always like underappreciated, I feel like, for the size it has. Like it is such a big rocket, actually. It feels more tiny. It feels way more tiny than it actually is. And there it comes up in the middle. What are the pads on the left there?
That is actually Slick 41, so that is where Atlas and Vulcan flies.
There we go. So still no Atlas there to be seen yet. But soon. There she goes through the clouds. That is, of course, from one of our most stationary cameras. There's the close-up shot. There we go. Wonderful. I like this. And again, another picture perfect launch. I think we're getting, this is not a max track, I think. And I think, is it?
This one is, yes, sir.
Yeah, you let it go out of frame and then you pick it up, right?
That's it, and then there's audio coming.
Yep, let's listen in. Love that little foo from Max as you're excited about the vapor cone.
Well, it was just hanging around for a while, and that's not something that we typically see, especially of that nature. So it's always exciting. Can't help it.
Ooh, we also have. I will quickly update this because can I update this, Jay? Is that okay if I say that? Oh, we're getting the Caton track here from
The Caton track.
From Ryan. Sorry, that was typed in the back channel. I just read it out. This is Ryan tracking with a robotic asset.
The Ryan track, the British track. You can call it many ways.
Wonderful. I have so many more names I want just to mention, but I just didn't.
The map
Next
track.
up is and next up is Carson track, which will come up. So apparently our operators also used it as a robotic training session this launch today. So yeah, nice. Very, very cool. Quickly want to mention that there was just a road closure announced in Boca from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. tonight. And that might be for ship 36 rolling to Massey's, which means if my clock is about correct, that would put us theoretically on a launch around 25th, 26th, 27th. If they go reasonably fast.
Assuming everything at Massey's goes according to plan for it, potentially.
Yeah, but assuming this, absolutely right now, we have a Starship net date of around end of month. So, Max, you like traveling?
I love traveling. I love road trips. Just turn right around after the last one and go right back.
Max is like, I just arrived in Florida. So, yeah. Thank you so much for that tracking. And I will look at the back. Yep, okay. And I can thank some people here, starting with Alex. Alex, thanks for being commentator and also holding down the stream here while my internet was taking a bit of a dip.
It's okay. It's always fun to be here for launches, for any other streams or whatever. It's always fun to just gather together and enjoy some space.
Yeah, absolutely. We enjoyed some space today, like Falcon 9. Max, did you also enjoy some space today?
I always enjoy some space, just like everybody else who is lucky enough to come on and hang out with us today. So it's been a pleasure, as always, sharing these views with everybody, and we will hopefully see you again shortly for either Axiom or Atlas 5 on Monday.
Thank you so much for that, Max. And behind the scenes was Jay Keegan operating today's streams. Thank you so much, Jay, for that. And also helping me dealing with my internet issues. So there's that. And also we had, of course, Carson and Ryan Caton behind the scenes tracking and checking the Falcon 9 out with some robotic assets today. So thank you so much, Ryan Caton and Carson today. And with that, I'm Adrian Bile. I'm your host for today's mission, as Jay is frantically trying to catch up with the top right mention of people. And with that, we will see you all on the Flame Trench later today in just 5 hours from now. So, yeah.
And here we go.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes! They go down to nominal.
Flighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange! 145!
Oh my god!
Decollage. What is it? Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.